There's a farm near Beulah, Michigan, where there is this elm tree, this majestic, stately elm tree. And it was planted in the first half of the 20th century. And in the 1950s, the people that owned the farm had a bull that they chained with an iron chain to that tree. And as the bull went around the tree and paced around the tree, it created a trench in the bark, in the trunk of the tree, about 3 feet off the ground. And as that bull continued to pace and pace, that trench got deeper and deeper, but for some reason did not kill the tree. Now, eventually those people sold the farm, and somebody new drove in, bought the farm. Well, they probably did drive in, but they bought the farm. The former owners took their bull with them, but they just cut that chain. So they left the chain around the trunk of the tree with just a link hanging. So the new owners came in, they didn't have a bull, and so slowly by slowly the bark started covering up the chain. And so instead of a nice tree trunk, it was a little bit gnarly, as you could imagine, because there was a big gash inside the tree trunk, and then there was that iron chain, and but the tree survived. And then what happened is that agricultural catastrophe struck in the form of Dutch elm disease. And the whole road leading up to this farm, every single elm tree was infected with this disease and died. And everyone knew that this big elm tree would be next. And the owners thought, well, they should probably cut down the tree and use it for firewood instead of letting nature take its course, because if that big tree is going to die, then a wind could come over and that huge tree could fall into the roof of the barn and create a lot of problems. But it had been there for so long, it kind of became part of the family. So the owners of the farm at that time decided to let nature take its course. But something happened, and that tree did not die. And nobody could figure out why this is the only tree in the whole county, the only elm tree in the whole county that was still alive. And so plant pathologists from the University of Michigan came and took a look. And when they came to examine the tree, they could still see a little teeny bit of this chain, completely corroded, that was not quite yet covered over by bark. And what they had decided, the only thing that they could decide, was that because of the corrosiveness of that iron chain, that the tree, the elm tree, had absorbed so much iron that it was immune to that encroaching fungus. And so that tree is there today. Its top spans 60 feet. And the trunk is about 12 feet in diameter. And so the reason I tell this story is because if you would look at this tree, this is a severe wound in the tree, 3 feet off the ground, a huge gash, corrosive chain with a thing hanging down open. And so what happens is, though, when we think that we have wounds, like this tree had a huge wound, we think that we're identified by our wounds, but yet it could be those very wounds, and we might talk about them as flaws, we might talk about them as problems, as challenges, whatever it is, our words, I'm going to talk about it as a wound today, that we identify so strongly sometimes with our wounds that we don't ever rise up high enough to love ourselves so much, so that we can love each other so much, right? Because we think that we're less than. We think that we are flawed and damaged. So the question this morning, because the theme this month is living the life you love, discovering the life you love. So in the midst of your wounds, are you able to rise up and love yourself? In the midst of your wounds, are you able to not only live the life you love, but love the life you live? Or are we so entrenched in identifying ourselves with our flaws, with our wounds, that we don't ever rise up, that we're in that perpetual state of trying to fix ourselves, trying to cover up ideas of shame or blame or guilt or regret or remorse, that we don't ever show up fully and authentically. And because what happens is that when we have, we learn a lot through some challenges, through our perceived flaws. And we can be stronger in those places. We can come to a place of self-acceptance. We can come to a place of understanding. We can come to a place of compassion. We can come to a place of helping others move through something that we have already moved through. That's an option. Because the other option is to stay stuck, to identify ourselves so strongly, so deeply with those ideas that we have that we're not good enough, that we're not whole enough, that somehow that we're broken, and that we need to fix ourselves before we can be happy, before we can love the life we live, before we're worthy of love, of receiving love, before we can give love, before that we can be accepted as who we are. And that is just simply not the truth, because the truth is this, that there is only one thing. I'm going to have a quiz. What is that one thing? Anybody?
Love.
God. Love. Any of the words for God. Absolutely. There's only love. There's only joy. We might not experience it at the moment because we've forgotten. Because we have distanced ourselves. Because we have separated ourselves. Because we have identified not with the truth of who we are. Not that we are the activity of the divine. But we have identified ourselves with some flaw. With some challenge. With some aspect of who we think we are that is not the truth. Because there is a power for good in the universe. There is only one thing. That one thing is the divine. It's the essence of love. It is God. It is source energy. It is spirit. It is the beloved. It is perfect and whole. It is the creative essence of all that is. It is always working. It is right where we are. It is never separate from what we are. It is operating in us right now. It is causing our heart to beat. It never turns away. It is the all that is. And in that activity of the divine, we're not flawed. Maybe we've made wrong choices. Maybe we've allowed our internal mind chatter, our monkey mind, to talk us into ideas that really weren't helping us at all. But the truth is that we are the activity of the divine. And to the degree that we can come back to that truth again and again and again, then that is the degree that we will be able to love ourselves so much, to love the life we've created, whatever it looks like. Because we're not locked into anything. If we're not actually loving the life we're living at this moment, guess what? We could just recreate it, make different choices. The world is and so when we know that truth, we can there's no searching for that nectar of life. We can allow that inner splendor that is who we are, we can allow it to come out. We can allow ourselves to experience the greatness that we are. With gusto and enthusiasm. But we need to stop identifying ourselves with our flaws, with our wounds, with our challenges. And we need to recognize that has never, ever, ever been the truth. But we always have a choice. So when Caitlin was young, like other mothers, who have young kids, I was the suburban mom, and wanted to put her into all these activities, right? So gymnastics and soccer. So I remember one time she was playing soccer. Now Caitlin is not super athletic, you might say, but I think she liked the idea. Or maybe she was just trying to please me, but I think she liked the idea of being outdoors and being active and doing the things that her friends at school were doing. And so we got to playing soccer, and the coach put her into the goalie box at one time. And so she was looking good there. I'm the mom watching from the sidelines, and I could kind of see her dancing around a little bit. So she was engaged, but not too much where the action was, right? She didn't have to come out of her comfort zone too often. And then the activity came by her. the ball started coming close to the net. And I saw that she had the deer in the headlights look. Like, oh no. And then, what do you know, if the other team, like, kicked the ball in, right? It was an easy block. Super easy. But what did Caitlin do? She just went right out of the way. Score for the other team. So it wasn't too long after that we took her out of soccer and put her into brownies where there's no fast balls coming at her. And the reason I tell this story is because that's how we are. We have a lot of balls coming at us. The balls are ideas and beliefs. The balls are choices. The balls are our opinions. The balls are other people's opinions. So we have an opinion that we're flawed. We step out of the way, score. The net is like the subconscious mind. Score. We have an idea that we're not good enough, that we have to try harder. We let it pass, score. We have an idea that maybe you have to work hard for the money, that nobody in your family has ever been successful. We get out of the way, score. But yet we have other ideas. Somebody wants to come and help us. Somebody wants to see us in the truth of who we are. Oh no, we successfully block that. So we pick and choose what it is that we're allowing in our subconscious mind. What we're allowing to get past us so we should really, that high watch, take that high watch really is watching our thoughts, watching what gets in. And what gets in, we need to allow to score is those thoughts of truth. That we are the activity of the divine, that we are having fun with spirituality, that we can love the life that we live, that we can love ourselves so much, that we're wonderful the way we are. Do we want to change? Sure. And it's okay, but if we don't, we're okay anyway. That the stuff that we observe in our existence is not the truth. This is just the outcome of what we've been thinking. So we can be at that goalie, in the goalie net, blocking those and allowing the truth to come through and to score. But sometimes we think that it might take some work. Right? Maybe we think, so this is a score. Oh, it's too much work. Oh, the spiritual path is too much. Oh, I can't do it. How can I pay attention all the time? Score, score. And so what happens? We're allowing ourselves to come up with excuses as to why it is that we're allowing ourselves to stay stuck. Why it is that we're allowing our flaws, our challenges, our wounds to take top level, so to speak. So it doesn't have to be work. That's where the fun with spirituality can come in. It can be a joyful experience, getting to know the divine in a better way, in a greater way, in a more intimate way. What could be more fun than allowing that inner splendor out? What can be more delightful than allowing that nectar to come to the forefront in our mind, and we don't need to go searching for it because it's always been right where we are. Always been right where we are. It doesn't have to be work because we don't want to change and we don't want to make things work. But it doesn't have to be work, right? It doesn't have to be work. Dr. Ernest Holmes, founder of religious science, said this. He said, the road to self-discovery often calls for a clearing away of the underbrush. Clearing away of the underbrush of fear, ignorance, superstition, and a sense of isolation that has made us feel that we are unworthy, unheld, and lost. The divine providence of good, salvation is in the divine providence of good. Salvation is unnecessary, but self-discovery is essential. We do not save that which was lost. We merely discover what needs to be found. So what needs to be found where you're sitting right there? What needs to be found? What truth that you are hiding, that you are burying, needs to be opened up and discovered? What needs to be found? We don't have any problems finding our flaws. We don't have any problems identifying our challenges. We don't have any problems finding our wounds, talking about them, wearing them like awards and rewards. We carry those things. We don't think we're doing it, but we carry them with glee. But what needs to be found is that eternal something that is right where we are, that essence of truth, that divine love, the activity of God, the essence of light, of joy. We need to find our place of power and purpose. We need to identify and claim our own magnificence. But sometimes it's scary. You know that Marianne Williamson quote, right? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And it's time for us to step in to that idea of power. It's time for us to step in to that idea in a fuller, greater, conscious way that where we are, what we are, who we are, is the divine, is God, is spectacular, is magnificent, regardless of what we have chosen to call our wounds, to call our flaws, to call our challenges. That has never been the truth of who we are, ever, and it never will be. But we have to recognize, so it's easy to define, to identify ourselves with that. We know how to be less than. We know how to make excuses as to why we're not moving forward. We know how to fail. We know how to hold grudges. We know how to put ourselves down. We know how to have opinions to keep us separate. We're masters at that. Dr. Janet, PhD in all this stuff, right? What we need to step into is an awareness of the truth in a greater way, that none of that is the truth. That the truth is that we are so much more than we think we are. That we are powerful beyond measure. That we are the beloved. That we have everything that we need to not only love ourselves, but to love somebody else. That we have what we need to love our lives and to live the life we love. And so we are adored. We are the creation of the divine. We need to let that adoration out. We need to adore our own self. We need to recognize that we are not broken. That what we think is a flaw is not. It can be the source of our strength. It could be the very thing that propels us to our next phase of self-discovery. To our next phase of deservedness. To a way to rise up in understanding and love and compassion and joy and acceptance. But we need to rise up and identify with the truth of who we are. To recognize that we are the very, very beloved of the infinite, of the divine, of the precious one, of source, of God, whatever it is that we want to call it, we are it. And when we know we are it, we can truly, truly be in love with life, be in love with ourselves, be in love with everyone, because there is only one. And that one is you, and that one is me, and that one is us. And so it is.